Good day, everyone. My name is Damir Jaksic. I'm Chief Information Officer at KEO International Consultants, a creative enterprise of planning, designing, engineering, and project management professionals. A well-known consultant with strong presence in Gulf and, as of recently, in Europe too. Here in KEO, we are committed to resolve complexity and realize opportunities in a way our clients and partners develop the world. I'm very excited to be here moderating our discussion at the first day of the Big Five Digital Festival. And while this time we're not shaking hands across the halls and meeting rooms, we have rather all washed our hands and sat down in front of the cameras and computers in a fully virtual and a global event. Some of you would have joined us from the phone. Some of you have joined from the computer or tablet, at home or in office. But wherever you're watching us from, I know this has been a very, very challenging year for everyone. Thus, first of all, thank you for being here with us this afternoon. The fact that we're still here, getting together in novel ways, changing and adopting is remarkable. And kudos to you and every single one of us for adopting to this new norm. We have all been challenged to do things differently, and for the great part, we have put technology, as it has always been the case, to our aid in order to get things done. Today, we are pleased to welcome a number of panelists, as shared by my colleague a little bit earlier. What we hope that today's topic, aptly named Digital Dialogues, Adopting to a World of Exponential Change, will bring up a number of questions for you, and I want to let you know that we will try to address them as many as we can with the allotted time. The first topic of today's discussion is digital opportunities. Automation, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain, and many other technologies have transformed or already transforming our business, and they seem to be endless. As with these technologies, a corporate narrative is emerging among the leaders. There's been numerous stories of digital reinvention as companies are trying to leverage the power of digital and other connected technologies to allow them to engage within and with their supply chain, partners, and clients in a different way. Digital technologies are fundamentally changing what's possible. Repeat, digital technologies are fundamentally changing what's possible. And what that means is that every company in every industry must be inspired what digital makes possible. To our first question, we're going to go to David. David, which opportunities to leverage these digital technologies to really change the way you organize your business to redefine strategic or competitive advantage are you exploring right now?
Well, in the first place, it's great to be with you all today. Thank you for having me. Gensler has been deeply committed to digital design technology for decades, actually. But in the last several years, we've built a new design technology organization for ourselves to really deeply embed design technology in everything we do. And the guiding philosophy of our technology organization now is really enhancing the superpowers that humans already have to even do better design solutions for our clients. And so when I talk about the superpowers that humans already have, talk about humans relying on their senses, their imagination, their experiences, their relationships, their powers for empathy and that sort of thing. And those are things that cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence, not at all. And we wouldn't even try. So what we're trying to do is put real incredible tools in the hands of our designers now to give them better decision-making capabilities and to really automate a lot of the mundane things that they could be otherwise spending their time on higher creative tasks. So really, to us, it's about designing a new ecosystem of tools that really put computational design at the fingertips of all of our designers through the organization. We're really trying to democratize the design technology process.
Thank you, David. Jason, over to you. What do we do in Aecom?
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, for us, really, digital enables us to break down the barriers, I suppose, and share information around the globe. So we're thinking and acting globally. That's our real aim for this coming year. And that really relies upon being able to share data and share information around different platforms. So the common data environments, both with our clients, with our collaborators. So our reach is worldwide, and our people are working from all different locations. So we want to connect them together. And that common data environment is, I think, an industry challenge. We have different platforms, different tools, different information, all involved in the design process, the construction process, and even during the occupancy of assets and things. So for us, it's about how do we link data and link people to that data and leverage that data to the best for our clients. So really, it's thinking globally, bringing people together. And digital is an enabler for that.
Thanks, Jason. Stephan, DNS seems to have a very, very similar story too. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. Thanks, Damir. Well, at Drees and Sommer, we always invested into technology, and we have our own Center for Smart Technologies in Aachen, which is equivalent to the MIT of Germany. And there we analyze and test drive everything what comes in terms of technology, in the sense of how to adopt digitization for our clients, for our projects in order to add value. But not only this, we start every single project with a digitization strategy in order to really evaluate what's adding value for a client, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But that's on the client, on the project side. As a company, we invest a lot in technology as well. We are developing our own digital tools. Is it like a digital lean construction management tool or asset check? Online applications are going more and more into the forefront of our business in order to leverage very much so technology and digitization to make things smarter, faster, and more affordable in order to pass those, say, savings to clients as well.
Thanks, Stephan. With us, we also have Dr. Ozan, who represents the University of Wollongong in Dubai. And I'm sure that he has seen a fair share, or perhaps even with some of the companies that we have the panelists in what do they do in terms of digitizing the workflows, exploring the opportunities, and creating a corporate advantage. Can you tell us, is there a team within the organizations operating in our industry around exploring digital technologies, and how do they do that?
Thanks, Damir. Look, I have been experienced a lot in the industry in the past for digitalization for various places, and also with Wollongong, plenty of different industrial students we have. I could say, in terms of your question, to look into roadmaps of digitization is critical, and the critical thing for the organization is really how they define the way they operate. I mean, are we going to be going to the same business models, or are we going to be disrupting the existing business models? I think that's the most challenging part. So in order to go into this route, having a digital roadmap, the first priority is, I think, the disrupting the existing business model so that we are able to see the business value. I mean, that's the most critical thing. You can call the digital transformation, or you can call disrupting the new business model, basically. That's the challenge all the companies are facing. Across the life cycle, we have plenty of design to engineering to facility management. I think all the companies are going through this journey, basically. Beyond they have the technology, I think this is more critical thing. What is going to be the winner for them in the business model? How they're going to position themselves in the overall sense within this journey? The last 20 years, we experienced a lot of difficulties, challenges, and adoption, I can say. But next 5 years, I believe, at least what I've seen, is going to be a quicker adoption and a steeper curve. That's where the company is going to be transforming.
And data definitely plays a significant part in this conversation in terms of minimizing destruction of data or information as it traverses through the asset cycle. Do you see any organizations operating in our markets investing into resourcing data and analytic projects? Do they feed of the AI? How do they use data to deliver tangible value?
Okay, there is a plenty of organizations, especially in the oil and gas sector, looking into digitization of their plants. I could say I'm coming from aviation sector, very recently involved in large-scale airports. So that's one of the data generators. Within the COVID, of course, it has been affected. But the large, complex scale environments like aviation, like infrastructure, and plus oil and gas, there's a huge demand going through now to digitizing the overall asset. The main aim is over here to control the existing asset, in a sense, in terms of operational efficiencies and monitoring how they deliver the business goals. The other thing is expansion. With the current asset owners, they're always looking into expansions and how they're going to be delivering these expansions. There are two challenges for them. And recently I came across plenty of Fortune top companies for technology providers. They are directly working with the clients for digitizing these connected platforms. At the early stages still, I believe, because this journey is a bit complex, transformation, which I think we'll be touching up during the discussion, I believe.
Thank you. What we've also seen, we've seen the team around data, and since we have representatives from the AEC here, CDE, or Common Data Environment, becomes a de facto must-have. And let me just ask very, very pointy question. Do we have a definition, and I'm going to ask all of the panelists, do we have a definition within your organizations of what a CDE is, and are we using it within the many different projects that we work on? How about we ask Dr. Ozan, and then we can go to David and Jason and Stephan.
CDE, the projects I've been involved in the past, we always created a common data environment within the individuals, all the parties involved. I think the challenge was for industry in general is how we're going to take the CDE environment across the life cycle. That was the biggest issue, designed to hand over for the clients, basically. I think for the previous experiences I had, another disruptive business model utilized is to really, on behalf of the clients, how to manage these digital ecosystems. Because if you look at from the only design perspective or engineering perspective, it would not be enough to deliver all the outcomes for the client. So I believe the CDs has to work for the client across the life cycle, and this should be very much aligned with the client objectives as a digital ecosystem. That's what I could say and experience previously.
Thanks. David, we tend to, we have Gensler has wonderful architects all over the world. And, since I have been working with architects and continue to work with them, they can be a little bit overly creative and perhaps not bound to the structures of CDE. So how something like that works in Gensler, trying to get people to do process 1, process 2, and process 3, what CDE tends to mandate?
Well, it's a matter of change management for us and behavior modification, and so I think, but it's understanding that a common data set and platform is important, and we've got to work toward that. And it's both in our design work for our clients and also in the analysis that we do within our business, the different metrics surrounding our projects and our performance. So we were having a meeting yesterday talking about that, cleaning the data and how do we do that and how do we. So there are a variety of processes that are still working their way through the company, but we're making good progress, I would have to say.
Very happy to hear that. Jason, Aecom is an infrastructure giant, and I'm sure that there are many technology solutions where CD is implemented How can you tell us a little bit about perhaps one of your latest projects or the most recent projects where you have used or your team has used CDE for in order to ensure that everyone is connected and there's very little distraction in terms of data as it transfers through its life cycle.
Yeah, it's a very interesting and challenging topic because industry standards are only just coming out, the ISO standards, to get a common data environment. And we really break up into two areas. We have our horizontal, so our civils work, so roads and drainage and things like that extend horizontally. And then we have our vertical elements, so our buildings, if you like. And each have their own platforms, and it's how they talk to each other that's always the challenge, creating one platform that can link data from different platforms. And we've been very successful in creating two ecosystems, one for each, that then have a common environment. And there's two major tools that are out there, the ProjectWise or BIM 360. And both we've been trialing over the last year, and certainly when COVID happened and work from home, it was great to have everything on the cloud, everything where no matter where you sat, you could access. So I think tools like that enable multiple users from multiple disciplines and clients as well as collaborators to sit in one environment is really, really helpful. And I'd take up the point that was just mentioned about really it's about the client and what asset information we hand over at the end. So it's linking not just the tools as designers, it's tools as contractors that build the assets and the asset owners. So we're trying to link vertical and horizontal from a design perspective, but we also want to link horizontally into construction and asset operation. And I think that's the area that we're seeing our investment really going to develop with enterprise agreements with major software suppliers. How do we link data to make it into information? Because data on its own, we've got loads of data. How do we correct useful information to inform decisions, inform clients, and make better assets in the built environment? That's what we're trying to do. And we need to work not just as construction industry, we need to work with the software industry, ultimately, because we're trying to move information around. And we're not experts in that. We're good designers. We're amazing designers. And I'm sure with David from Gensler as well, we need people who bring other skills into our industry. Data analytics, data information management, data governance. There's all these things that we're grappling with as an industry. And I think we're one of the leaders. I'm sure Gensler and others on the call. But that's bringing us all together and bringing those skills and other skills to our industry and not be shy to ask for that.
Thanks, Jason. That was very insightful. Stephan, certainly CDE equates to process. How do you deal with the process within your organization or CDE? I'm sure there's a fair amount of prescription in terms of how DNS is dealing with this.
Yeah, at Drees and Sommer, obviously we deal with it as well. We always hope that we are early enough in a project in order to set up the right structure in order to ease the process then throughout design, construction, and later on also in terms of operation. We have a dedicated team who's doing nothing else than working on, let's say, those structures, the elements, methodologies, whatever is required. As the other panelists said before, it is so important that it's set up in the right way and that you really use the data throughout and making sure that there are no complications. So in order to maximize the value out of it. And another point is obviously then the security in terms of accessibility of data and that it's not used in the wrong way.
Now security is becoming very, very important, and some of the panelists here within their own companies and some of our competitors, and effectively creating new businesses out of information exchange and security, new revenue models seen from traditional AEC companies. Some of these few questions clearly highlight the level of change. And while technology is important, employees are equally important, thinking about clients is important, but perhaps given the profound changes our organizations are facing with these digital technologies, leadership may be the most important thing of all. David, what part does a leader such as yourself play in this new digital world? How digital is changing the role of the leaders?
Well, in our organization, we're very flat in the first place. We're not very hierarchical at all, but I think that this digital immersion that we've gone through, the whole world has, it's really made all organizations flatter. In fact, I saw a quote by the Chief Strategy Officer of Salesforce the other day, and that quote was, "All the social codes of leadership have kind of disappeared. We are all little pictures on Zoom these days." You know, so there's more access, there's more communication. Probably it's interesting. Leadership has gotten to know probably a lot of the team in personal ways that they wouldn't have before. We've had glimpses into our coworkers' houses. I've met their families, their pets, you name it, right? But I would say that it's even more important in these days and times that leaders, lead. And by leading, I think we really talk about reinforcing the mission and values and culture of the firm. I'm sure you all have, as we have had, people join our organization and be onboarded during this period of time when we're all working from home or working remotely. And how difficult is that? Trying to, express what we're all about and teach people when we only are spending a very limited amount of time with them every day. So I think it's up to the leadership to communicate even more. I know our co-CEOs in our firm, Andy and Diane, went out of their way in these last several months to talk more to the employees as groups and as individuals about the firm and where it's headed and how it's doing. So to me, leadership is even more important in these days, and stepping up and communicating is one of the most important aspects.
Thanks, David. Jason, David did talk about everyone's picture in the video conference, and he referenced really good theme of equality. How can one deal with equality in organizations such as big as Aecom?
Yeah, so I think for us as Aecom, 60,000 people plus is a large organisation, and linking us together, a bit like David said, seeing people on Zoom, and it's a leveler. It levels the playing field out. Everybody's equal. When it comes to digital and using Zoom or using Teams or whatever, it's a leveling playing field. And for us, it's trying to inspire people to get involved, inspire them that digital can help them in their life, and it's an enabler. Really, the technology is there to help us, not replace us, and try to make people not be afraid of technology, because that is, I'm sure, a fear amongst many people that will that lose jobs? Well, no, it's just going to change your role slightly, and we've got to educate people, train people, and inspire people to really realize the opportunities that it creates rather than things that disappear. So the mundane goes away, whereas more interesting roles come on board. So you can really use your unique skills as a human that really data and analytics doesn't bring to the table. So we're trying to really make people inspired by what it can do, how it can enable us to be better, to offer a better service, offer offer better buildings to clients, really. So to me, it's great. It levels the playing field, and everybody is put on the table. So right from the most junior recent joiner to the CEO, we're all involved in it, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, this thinking and acting globally is bringing wherever the talent is, wherever the skill is or experience to the table. And I think that's what the last 6 months, 9 months has brought to us, that everybody can connect now really easily. It is possible.
Great. And that would probably see some of the new and aspiring leaders to come into the focus a little bit earlier than they might have. So which is really good, very, very encouraging for the new aspiring generations. Stephan, David made a remark which I like a lot, which is, my apologies, Jason has made a remark that I like a lot, which is we're using technology to make workplace smarter, not smaller. So how does that work in Drees and Sommer, and what leadership plays a part in ensuring that we use technology smarter and we don't make our team smaller?
Yes. Well, technology is definitely important, and we don't get rid of it. We have to adapt to technology. We have to also admit that it changes our behavior. It changes us, the way how we work together, how we hopefully work also smarter together. But communication, as David said before, and leadership remains very critical. You can add more technology, you can add the latest technology, but at the end, our humans, our human brain, our human behavior is still like from 10,000 years ago. And from that perspective, you have to consider that, it's not only technology, you still have to have communication, the interaction with people. You have to coach, you have to lead, you have to inspire, as also Jason said, and that's the key. So you have to find the balance between technology and also still the human needs.
Thanks, Stephan. Dr. Ozan, clearly you have seen a number of leaders within the respective markets transforming the organizations. How important is the leader for the digital transformation?
I think that's the key, to be honest, for a success to start with. I mean, it needs to be a kind of a new leadership with the digital transformation, because it includes various items. It includes very detailed processes. It has it requires resilience to change. I mean, we need to the whole transformation leadership needs to be a kind of resilient and agile and flexible thinking. It needs innovative mindset, but in the meantime, thinking of all the business values and the outcomes and commercial mindset. So I think, to be honest with you, how I define it's a combination of with the traditional organizations. We have technical officers, financial officers, and plus operations officers. I think transformation is a kind of a diagram which needs to be, which requires the skills of part of it. That's how digital plays the role. That's how I see it, to be honest. So it takes all sorts of responsibilities from these areas.
Thank you. And you did mention resilience. We seem to have resilience as the new readiness team permeating our organizations. Clearly, any change is easier said than done. I'm sure that everyone on the call is well aware of that. The kind of transformation that digital technologies require is not for the faint of heart. What leaders need to understand and to really embrace is it's not a choice. It's a matter of survival. What role does the organizational culture play in that? And let's stay with Dr. Ozan.
I totally agree what you're saying. So in order to organize organizations to take the next level and even to survive for their business models, what you say is 100%. So what is required for the rest of the players, I think, in the organization from different levels to be part of this change, as you are referring, and this is all cultural change, basically, inclusive of all the parties involved. I think the key thing is which part of the organization they need to see the value for themselves. That's the critical. Either from whichever level they are coming from, they need to see a value for themselves within this transformation. Then it will be a great success for everybody. Otherwise, it's a kind of thing on the isolated on one side, which one of the leaders is great to have it, but it needs to have some value for all the individuals and organizations involved, basically. That's what I could say.
Thank you. David, Gensler, very, very creative enterprise, great organization culture. From my experience, is dealing with some of your colleagues, past and present. To what level culture plays a role in digital?
Well, we think that business strategy is really important too, but I've heard it said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I think that's really true. Our culture is probably the most important thing to us, and the great part about that is that it's very forward-looking. Art started the company that way and always wanted to be where the competition wasn't. You know, when the competition caught up with him, he wanted to be 10 steps down the road. So we've got these guiding principles that have a whole series of qualities in them, and they're like curiosity, growth, diversity, innovation, and collaboration. All that stuff is very, very forward-looking. And so I think that helps us focus on everybody, you know, being a learning culture, for instance. I mean, we've got, you know, as far as it relates to design technology too, I mean, we're doing a lot of assessments and we're doing a lot of, you know, talent development programs constantly along the lines of digital design technology, digital technology. So we think culture is hugely important. We've never acquired other companies because we thought it would be, you know, challenging to our culture. So we believe that our culture is really one of the huge keys to our success.
Thank you. Jason, culture and digital, and clearly learning seems to have been playing a very, very important part in transitioning to digital, acquiring new skills, connecting, not being afraid of speaking up, sharing the views, and so on and so forth, is very, very important for the connected enterprise. To what role, to what level organization culture aids, or Aecom's organizational culture aids transition to digital?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I agree. You know, culture is going to be a major factor in the success. If the culture gets it right and accepts the change, then it's going to be successful. Within Aecom, we do many things to encourage this change, but a big thing is about having an open culture and rewarding innovation. So we have different reward mechanisms that really is global challenges we introduce. So the CEO does a global challenge every quarter, encouraging ideas. You put forward, you get funding for it, you get funding in terms of time to spend on it, and you get rewarded financially. So we're really trying to create and continue with this journey of we've got to innovate, continually innovate. And that's really, we've got to encourage it. As leaders, we've got to reward it and encourage people to come up with new ideas and leverage that. So it's a culture of open culture, as in we listen and want new ideas, and encouraging innovation and really continually moving forward. I mean, similar messages to what David was saying, and that, you know, you've really got to get everybody on board and moving forwards and coming up with new ideas to the benefit of everybody. So we try to have all these different reward programs, innovation programs, and everything that come from the CEO and COO from right at the top. They do the messages every quarter, so to show that it's really important to everybody.
This is great to hear. In my view, it does start from the top, very much encouragement of the leader. They say that leader sets a vision and then it becomes a servant. How do we deal with these in Sommer, Stephan, when it comes to leadership, playing what role leadership does play in digital transition?
Yeah, as David said, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and I would even say culture eats technology for breakfast. And if you consider, that we are going through a factor maybe 10x in the future, you have to get obviously the full team on board. And then we're not 60,000 people, but we're around 4,000 people. And we always were very proud of the Dresden Sommer spirit, which is coming from many things. But one is definitely the leadership, as you said, and making sure that the culture of entrepreneurship is really understood from everyone. So Dresden Sommer was obviously founded by an entrepreneur, and it is trickled down into every level of the organization. So you're really allowed to do what you think is best for Dresden Sommer. You are allowed to innovate and come up with new and crazy ideas, which maybe need to be challenged within the company, but no one tells you, no, it's not possible. I think that's the great spirit within Dresden Sommer, and obviously helps through all this technology change, making sure that you have the right team and the right people on board. And it doesn't matter if you're in Dubai or back in Germany or somewhere in China, this all brings us together.
No, this is, thank you very much, Stephan. This has been a year of change. And I'd like to put a question, perhaps a little bit more personal to our panelists here. What has been the most successful new business practice that you have tried and found to be working in this year of disruption? It may, for me, an example was to try to have meetings rather than, as we default to 1 hour meetings, let's have 45 minutes meetings, and then try to get these 15 minutes for something else. This is a practice that I've kind of embraced in these trying times. Is there anything that you would like to share with our audience in terms of tips and tricks that you have personally or within your team tried in the past year and found to be very, very effective? Let's start with perhaps Dr. Ozan.
Yeah, I think the last year you're referring COVID-19 pre-post impact, I believe. So from the education perspective, which was I was in this year, we totally translated ourselves in the virtual platforms, and all our students from different programs, especially I'm responsible for master's level in different organizations, they all operate. It was very effective, I could say. We always used these tools before for further business perspective, but and integrate in different countries. But it has been a huge amount of use virtually. So we started delivering everything, knowledge sharing. It has been come into very much effective for knowledge sharing, I could say. Rather than having one screen, you'll have plenty of screens from different zones. I think it turned out to be, especially for learning and education, it came out like brilliant transformation because of the things we're having with the COVID. And it's a very quick transformation, I could say.
Thank you, Dr. Ozan. Jason, have you got any tip to share with our audience in terms of new business practice that you tried in the last year?
Yeah, I think particularly with the working from home and ensuring our business was maintained, a couple of things that came out was we rolled out more use of Teams and moving everything to the cloud base, all our files and all our systems and all that. So it enabled people to work wherever they were based. It doesn't matter at home or whichever country. For me personally, because everyone was working from home and I have a big team of 200 people, connecting with them, so having 5-minute, 10-minute catch-ups on a morning, we actually got to know each other more, I think, and we've maintained it. Even though we're allowed back in the office, we've maintained these catch-ups of just touching in very short windows and just seeing how things are, just sensing and feeling how people are feeling about things. So I found that just making more regular short contacts on a morning, start of their day, how are things going? And that's something new that I wouldn't have thought of, but now use it all the time.
Great to hear that it's working. I definitely second something like that. David, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience too, in terms of what have you learned?
Sure, would like to. So we've got, I think, 26 different practice areas within our firm. Each one of those practice areas has global leadership. Those global leaders have been speculating on the future of those different practice areas. So we've taken that thought leadership and then taken that to the client roundtables. So we've approached a whole number of clients and done sort of one-on-one, Gensler to client roundtables about the future of whatever it is that sort of is applicable to them. And it's been really good. It's maybe easier to get to clients because they're not traveling just like we're not. And so these are typically hour-long conversations. They've been very effective, and it's not about a project necessarily, but it's about where things going. So that's been on the company level. On a personal level, I've been focusing on well-being. I moderated a panel on design for well-being in the workplace and did a few informal survey questions. And so one of the questions was, do you personally feel like you have greater well-being pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, where we are now? And it was interesting that 2/3 of the people who responded felt like they had a better sense of well-being now than pre-pandemic, which I thought was really interesting. So I haven't been traveling, I haven't been experiencing jet lag, and I've been working out a little bit more. So that's been something that has been a good thing. And like you, I also learned that I had to have my assistant schedule a lunchtime for me because our region is across many, many time zones, and you've got to take control of your schedule and sort of schedule a little bit of time to take care of yourself. Perfect.
My battery is running low, so I'm going to get some IT support to help me out. Stephan, again, very, very similar. Anything to share with our audience, please?
Yeah, maybe a few thoughts to share. We have obviously increased communication, something that you have to be cautious about, because if you quickly jump on a Teams call, you're starting very early, working through different time zones, staying until late night, because you communicate with all around the world. So on the virtual side, blocking those elements into your calendar is important. We have increased the number of team meetings, doing it online, so really everyone can attend, and we are able to share the knowledge. Last but not least, we have also introduced our daily huddles, as you said, as the panelists said before, let's say a 5 minutes or 10 minutes quick call in the morning, just to make sure everyone is on the same page within the team, within the direct reports, and then off you go and have a good start into the day or even into the week. Yeah, and finally, let's say from a bigger organizational level, we are supposed to have our Dresden Sommer office seminar with 4,000 people in Germany, which didn't happen due to COVID, but we were able to pull off within a short 2 weeks notice an online office seminar over 2 days, which was a great experience probably for everyone at Dresden Sommer.
What we have all heard today is that we have adopted and changed, and I firmly believe we are not going back. During this crisis, all of us have been challenged to do things differently, looking into the role of digital and new technologies to build new ways of living and working. We are already thinking differently how to harness technology, data, working remotely, how we coordinate, and most importantly, while we still build physically, we are now far more comfortable in creating value virtually. Digital technologies are fundamentally changing what's possible. And what that means is that every company in every industry must be inspired by what digital makes possible. David talked about the superpowers and creativity digital presents to Gensler. Stephan has shared how his Drees and Sommer MIT-like team embeds innovative solutions into everyday processes, while Jason talked about digital as the enabler and Aecom's top-level leadership mandate to innovate. Dr. Ozan from the University of Wollongong in Dubai shared a number of insights how his clients and partners innovate on a range of solutions in the past and during this crisis. One thing that the current crisis should remind us is that humanity is, in many respects, one connected system. We will learn from the crisis and use it to move forward with greater resilience and permanently redrawn lines between physical and digital. Many thanks to our brilliant panelists for sharing their insights today, and thank you, our attendees around the world, for being with us today. Stay safe, everyone.
And what a wonderful session there. I mean, content-led, knowledge-rich, really so much to be found there. And again, a very contemporary session, a very urgent session of our time, what's happening in terms of digitalization and how the industry is responding. To all of the panelists, thank you so much. And it's great to have you all here now to actually take some questions from our audience. And just a note to our audience, we still have time to take a few questions. So make sure you get some of your live questions in, and I'll do my best to make sure that our panelists will actually share that with us. And indeed, Damir, big thanks for moderating that panel, really. And it's great to have you all back on here. But Damir, I have a question for you. You know, KEO International Consultants, of course, you're a big player in the project management on the construction side of the industry. But if I might ask you, in terms of what your clients want, how do you drive that digital agenda, so to speak?
Thanks, Etna, and thanks everyone as well. The understanding at the board level, it's definitely a given. And one of the things that I do insist on would be cross-company collaboration is really pivotal to be implementing such technologies and processes, innovating and getting the best out of the KEO International Consultants. We have approached this in a number of steps. We are attempting to, or continually attempting to integrate across the ecosystems. We've started off with one close through catastrophic event. We've used that as a burning platform, and from then on, we've established what's important to our organization, looking to the future and how we're going to deliver the work. Then we had a phase of personalization and standardization, auditing, process reviews, and so on and so forth. From then on, we've also started to build the digital talent. So we were looking for these change agents. We were looking to improve the competency of our teams, of the people that's working in our organization. And clearly we were trying to we're still trying to make as many as possible digitally aware, as we tend to say. Clearly,
there's so much to be done. There really is. You know, I've only got about 7 minutes with you guys, so I'm going to take advantage of every bit of it. So, Damir, I know it's in process, and I think for every industry, correct, every company. So it is very exciting. David, if I might come to you, when we look at digital transformation, obviously during the pandemic, and this is a question that's come in from one of our viewers here, and looking ahead to post-pandemic, is there a danger that the great work that's been done now and that has to be done, that might be undone perhaps when the pandemic is over? What do you think?
I don't think so at all. I think various consultants have done studies. They've said that in these last several months, there's probably been 10 years of advancement in terms of technological adoption. So I think we're moving forward and we're not going to look back.
Again, that's a very exciting point to it too. Stephan, if I may perhaps ask you the same thing, because when I look at different companies and how they view it, you're possibly on board with the same thing, but give us your viewpoint.
Yeah, I agree with David. It was definitely acceleration in the whole digitization process. I don't believe that we are going back. I think that also in the future, in the coming years, it will just go faster and faster in terms of digitization.
Ozan, if I may come to you to when we look at another question that came in from our audience here. When we think about it, they're saying, which is better, leading the workforce to technology or perhaps designing the technology to deal with the capacity of the workforce? And how will that decision then affect how organizations work?
Thanks, Edna. I think it's a combination of the both. How you balance the overall scene for the organization. So for sure, different organizations have different priorities and business models, and they need to highlight the key technological drivers for them. But in the meantime, they need to balance the workforce accordingly. I think the transformation journey requires how better you balance these two approaches, basically, and the success lies in underneath.
Yeah, I think we're hearing that, in fact, in all industries, really, that the process of digitalization, the speed now, that people just had to catch up, and they did. But I think this also demonstrates too, perhaps, the creativity that has probably always been there, and it's been embedded in our workforce. And I know many of you talked about actually how the concept of digitalization, and Jason, perhaps if I can come to you, really the democratization, I suppose, of bringing everybody on board, sharing new ideas, really for, the productive outlet of all companies. How important do you think digitization has been in terms of like moving an entire organization onto the next step?
Yeah, it's been essential, I think, and as everyone said, the acceleration in the last 9 months has been fantastic. That it's become business as usual, really, rather than previously where there was a mixed take-up of how many people getting involved. Now it's a must-have, and that's both within our organisation, but also within clients. We've seen them progress, and contractors and everyone in the industry is now realising the benefits of digital. So I think it's not just our organisation we've seen the benefit, it's clients, contractors, all the collaborators. And that's the real value I see in when everybody's on a level playing field, we can all advance and get better by working together and collaborating more.
Yeah, I think it is. It's essential indeed, and bringing more players into it. David, if I might ask you, in a question that's come in, I'm going to put two questions together on this one for you. How is technology risk measured? And indeed, talk to me just about, cybersecurity and also safeguarding, your clients' data and clients' information.
Yeah, well, second question first, I think that's paramount at this point. In fact, our clients are coming to us with really strong contract requirements that we take all kinds of steps to safeguard their data. So that's huge. And of course, we need to safeguard our employees' data and the information about our business. But how is risk measured? Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think the risk of not adopting sort of digital advancement is greater than anything else. So we need to do that. We need to take the leap, dedicate the resources, do the budgeting and do the ongoing training and adoption as we move forward. It's more risky not to adopt than to adopt.
Damir, perhaps if I could put that question to you also, when we think about the technology risk that's there and, the different clients that you work to, how fast or slow has been, their reaction and their uptake in terms of shifting to that new digital future, and indeed, the risk involved, and I suppose the commitment to it, the need for it.
Yeah, the shift happened very, very quickly. It was rather seamless for us. Clearly, the ever-present risk of cybersecurity will continue to linger for now and forever. We certainly don't want to be locked out from the building or to be stopped by the traffic lights malfunctioning because someone is trying to extort some money from the city. The really good news is the cybersecurity is at everyone's forefront, and we have new solutions, both from the hardware and software perspective, designed with the built-in security or designed security first, with security first in mindset. So that's something really good that we can expect in the future, to have more resilience when it comes to cybersecurity on many different layers.
And I think everybody's awareness on that too actually helps a lot too, because it's top priority. Jason, if I may ask you, when you talked a little bit about, as you said, you're not a software engineer, that's not your big focus, but talking about collaboration, this is where, you said you need to see more involvement too. Have the Microsofts and the Googles and the IBMs of the world, are they now, finding a new focus perhaps in the construction industry and helping people as well?
Yeah, it's fascinating over the last few years, and how the built environment now attracts other software suppliers and disruptors as well into the marketplace. We always have the big players that are involved in graphical data, so Autodesk being one of them, as well as Bentley. but now we have the non-graphical people who really manage data, and it's that we're trying to leverage. And we're seeing, certainly Microsoft is one of the people that we're working with at the moment on different tools, but there's also disruptors as well, small players in the market that are coming into it and seeing where they can add value to the data we now have and how they can inform our decisions, inform clients' decisions. And artificial intelligence is really the next step of using that data in an innovative way. So I see the next few years as we are going to see quite a few changes and new players in the market, really coming from a different industry rather than the built environment industry. And that'll help us all progress, I believe.
And Stephan, perhaps if I may continue that question with you in terms of, I think at one time when people looked at digitalization, they looked at it as a disruption. But now we're seeing, yes, a lot of smaller companies coming into the market, a lot of startups, but coming with new creative ideas. Are you finding that you're reaching out and embracing this as an organization and perhaps, bringing them into the fold and learning from them?
Yes, Edna, as Drees and Sommer, we do a lot together with startups, with new and disruptive companies, bringing them on board, being an accelerator for them, having programs in place to really make sure that we get those talent and the new ideas on board and integrate them into our projects. I think that's the way of the future. So these are the big players, as Jason said, but also the startups, the new companies with really good ideas, which we see more and more.
Yeah, it is. It's a very exciting time, a dynamic time really in the industry. Ozan, if I can come back to you, and there's one question here from a viewer too, talking about how every organization really needs to make its own policy for technology and really to align it. How can companies make sure, or do we need more standardization in the industry? What do you think?
Well, standardization is something to have actually across the industry, but in the meantime, we need to make sure that we are not buried into old standards and losing the sight. That's important. Putting the standards are important, but in the meantime, we shouldn't be limiting ourselves around the standards only, because all different organizations have getting into new business models, as you are saying, like the startups getting into large-scale organizations. So we need to be looking from the industry and organization specific, rather than standardize the whole industry as its own, despite the fact we need to have some guidelines. That's what I would say. Guidelines is required, but we need to be flexible.
Yeah, and it is that flexibility and agility. And when we look at, I think, the great creativity in this industry, we need to make sure that there's plenty of space for that. That's what it's about. Maybe in about 30 seconds, and I'd love if everybody would give me a quick answer on this. What do we think that, and if I might start with Jason on this one, what do you think the industry needs to do now to embrace this, to make sure that they're almost future-proof? So if I could have a quick 30 seconds on advice you'd give out there.
Wow, that's quite a broad, interesting question there. That I think all of us would love to have the ideal answer, but the way that I'm approaching it, I think Aecom is really trying to enable everybody and collaborate a lot more. I mentioned it earlier on that really it's a leveling tool is data and information. And what we've got to do is embrace that, all of us, and try to engage with people, engage with our clients, our collaborators, and be willing to share. A willingness to share and learn together is going to make a big difference. The silo mentality in the industry will be broken down somehow. And I think that data is one way of breaking those barriers down between us.
Okay, and I'm going to be reducing people for about 10 seconds now on that one, but that's a lovely overarching. Stephan, what do we need to do today to make sure we have a better tomorrow?
See, technology will definitely remain, and we have to see that technology is not only done for technology's sake, but it really is creating a lot of value for the users, for tenants, for developers, and let's say for the individual organizations as well. I would say I leave it there. It is really about what you make out of it.
Super. Dr. Ozan, a few words from you.
Yeah, I think we need to change the way totally we operate, bring the young generation in place, and not afraid of making the change. That's the key. And we need to embrace this to the clients as well.
Damir, a few quick words, and then I'll come to David.
AEC has been slow to adopt compared to the other sectors. Our industry is very much affected by the politics and regulations. And we certainly need to optimize some of these policies with the public sectors, and that would be a good start on my end, in addition to what others have said.
Great. David, your inspiring last words from you, please.
Great. I agree with Damir. Our industry is fragmented. It is behind. The designers and the constructors and the owners are all different entities, unlike an Airbus or an Apple, let's say, who's really trying to push the boundaries of technology. So we do need to collaborate, and we do need to focus on human well-being and the environment for the benefit of the whole world.
Super. I mean, and what a great line to close on there in terms of embracing the things that need to be done, because it is a very dynamic time. And I think, yes, challenges in place, which you've all outlined for us throughout that great conversation there, but at the same time, the great opportunities that we all must take advantage of. I really have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you all so much for joining us for that discussion. I know it's been a great added value to our audience, and I want to just thank you all. Thanks so much.